If this is one of those days, I'm really glad you're here. This is Kallaborate, where joy becomes your foundation. Not the loud kind of joy, but the kind you build, piece by piece, after life changes everything. I'm Francene, and I'm walking this with you. If you were here in the last episode, we talked about the complicated feeling of joy returning after loss. The moments where you laugh again, feel something again, and then wonder if it's okay that you did. Today, we're stepping into something quieter, something that often happens slowly, without us even realizing it at first. The moment where you begin to notice life doesn't feel the same anymore, and neither do you. After loss, there can be a moment where something shifts. Not better, just different. It might happen quietly. You notice something doesn't fit the way it used to. A conversation, a room full of people, a version of yourself you used to know how to be. Things you once cared deeply about don't feel as important anymore. Things you never noticed before suddenly feel enormous. The noise feels louder. Your energy feels different. Your tolerance changes. Even joy feels different than it used to. And somewhere inside all of that, you begin realizing you're changing. I don't think people talk enough about this part of grief. People talk about the sadness, the crying, the missing. But they don't always talk about what happens to your identity afterward. The way loss quietly reshapes you from the inside out. There are moments in life that change the way your body moves through the world afterward. Finding my daughter was one of those moments. Even years later, I can still feel how that moment changed everything inside me. Not just emotionally, but physically, mentally, spiritually. After something like that, life doesn't just go back to feeling normal. Your sense of safety changes. Your nervous system changes. The way you experience the world changes. I don't think people always understand that part. How grief can live not only in your heart, but in the way you move through ordinary moments afterward. There were moments where I didn't fully recognize myself anymore. Not in some dramatic way, not all at once. Just small moments where I realized the version of me that existed before everything changed wasn't fully there anymore. Honestly, that can feel unsettling because part of you keeps trying to go back. back to how things used to feel, back to who you were before life split into a before and after. For a long time, I think I kept trying to return to the version of me that existed before the loss. The version of me who moved through life differently, who felt safer, lighter, more certain about things. I kept thinking maybe if enough time passed, I would feel exactly like me again. Eventually, I realized something. She wasn't coming back. Not because she failed, not because she disappeared, but because life had changed me. There's grief in that too. Grief for the person you used to be, the version of yourself that existed before the heartbreak, before the trauma, before the moments that broke something open inside you, before the moment that changed everything. I think there's a space people enter after loss that's hard to explain unless you've lived it. It's the in-between space. Not fully who you used to be, and not fully who you're becoming. Just standing somewhere in the middle of it all, trying to understand yourself again. That space can feel lonely. People around you may expect things to go back to normal. But inside, you know something shifted permanently. You may notice yourself pulling back from things that once felt easy. You may need more quiet, more rest, more space to breathe. Certain conversations may feel exhausting now. Certain environments may no longer fit. Sometimes you don't even know how to explain why. There was another layer to all of this that took me a long time to even admit to myself. For 10 years, so much of my life became about trying to keep Kat alive. Watching, worrying, trying to notice shifts before they became something bigger. When someone you love is struggling that deeply, part of you never fully rests. Even in quiet moments, there's this constant awareness underneath everything. After she died, alongside the grief, there was this guilt I didn't expect. Because part of me realized I didn't have to carry that responsibility anymore. That felt horrible to admit. Not because I loved her any less, and not because I wanted her gone, but because after living in survival mode for so long, my body didn't know what to do without it. The fear had been there for so long. It had almost become a part of who I was. I think sometimes people experience emotions after loss that feel confusing or even shameful because they don't match what they think grief is supposed to look like. But grief is complicated, especially when love and caregiving and fear have all been living beside each other for years. I remember moments where I would look around at people continuing life normally, and part of me felt disconnected from it all. Not because I didn't care, not because I wanted to be distant, but because loss changes the way you see the world. Once you've experienced deep grief, you notice things differently. You become aware of how fragile life really is and how quickly everything can change. How much people carry silently. Sometimes that awareness changes what matters to you. It changes what you have energy for, what you tolerate, what you protect your peace from. Somewhere inside of all of that confusion, something else starts happening too. Not loudly, not all at once, just quietly, in pieces, like some part of me was trying to survive by reaching toward other people. I think part of the reason I believed I could even step into public speaking was because I gave Kat's eulogy. Something shifted in me while I was standing there. Not because I was strong, not because I had answers, but because I could feel how much truth matters when people are hurting. I could feel what happens when someone speaks honestly, when people feel seen inside pain instead of alone in it. Even in the middle of my own grief, something in me recognized that, even if I didn't fully understand it yet. 3 months after Kat died, I started training in public speaking. At the time, I don't even know if I fully understood why. I just knew I didn't want people carrying this kind of pain alone. I wanted people struggling with mental illness to know they weren't weak. They weren't broken. They weren't alone. I wanted to help soften some of the stigma around suicide, because silence around these conversations can leave people carrying so much by themselves. Looking back now, I think part of my healing started there too. Not because helping others erased the pain, because it gave somewhere for the love, the grief, and the meaning of what I had lived through to go. I remember speaking at the Minnesota State Fair about mental illness and suicide awareness. Afterward, people came up to me quietly, some with tears in their eyes, someone barely able to get the words out. More than one person told me they were going to take their medication now because hearing someone speak openly about mental illness helps something feel less shameful, less hidden, less alone. For the first time in a long time, I think part of me felt less alone too. I remember standing there realizing sometimes people don't need perfection. Sometimes they just need someone willing to say out loud what so many people are carrying silently. I remember realizing I wasn't the same in small ways first. Not in some grand, dramatic moment, just ordinary places. A room that felt too loud, a conversation I didn't have the energy to stay in, a moment where someone expected the old version of me to show up. And I could feel inside myself she wasn't available anymore. Not because I didn't care, not because I was cold, but because life had changed me. And I was still learning how to understand that. There was a moment when I knew I wasn't the same person anymore. I was standing in front of people who loved the version of Kat that she was able to let them see. I knew I had to speak for more than the ending of her story. I had to advocate for her life, for her dreams, for what she believed, for the parts of her people didn't fully understand. In that moment, I didn't care how it looked. I didn't care if it made people uncomfortable. I didn't care if they understood me. I just knew something in me had changed. From that moment on, I knew I would do what I could to help other people walking through the kind of struggles she carried, and to help make the world better for her child. That was not the old version of me coming back. That was someone new beginning to stand. This is something I wish more people understood. Healing doesn't always look like getting back to yourself. Sometimes it looks like learning how to meet the version of yourself that exists now, with tenderness instead of resistance. Not forcing yourself backward and not rushing yourself forward. Just allowing yourself to be honest about what changed. Because pretending nothing affected you doesn't heal you. Neither does constantly comparing yourself to who you used to be. If you've been noticing yourself changing lately, if life feels unfamiliar, if certain parts of yourself don't fit the way they used to, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not broken. You are not failing. You are not too much because loss changed you. Something significant happened to you. Of course it left an imprint. Of course you see life differently now. That doesn't mean you've lost yourself forever. Sometimes it simply means you're still becoming. Maybe healing isn't becoming who you were before. Maybe it's learning how to carry who you've become with gentleness. Maybe joy after loss looks different too. Quieter, softer, more intentional. less about performing happiness, and more about finally allowing yourself to exhale. Joy is not something you lost. It's something you rebuild. Sometimes the rebuilding begins the moment you stop fighting the truth that you changed. So today, instead of asking yourself why you're different, maybe ask yourself what you need now. More quiet, more honesty, more rest, more connection, more space to simply be where you are. You do not have to rush yourself into becoming someone new. You do not have to force yourself back into who you used to be. Maybe this season is simply about learning how to stand gently in the middle while life reshapes itself around you. Maybe that's enough for today. As always, if there is someone you carry with you, someone whose love or loss continues shaping your life, I invite you to share their name with me. Just their name, or one sentence about who they are to you, because they still matter. They are still part of the foundation we stand on. You can send submissions anytime to ms.treasure@kallaborate.com so we can remember them together. If this episode found you in the middle of change, in the middle of grief, or in the middle of trying to understand who you are now, I hope it reminded you that you're not alone there. You do not have to have every answer yet. You do not have to rush your healing. Some seasons are not about clarity. They're about learning how to stay present with yourself while things slowly unfold. If that's where you are right now, I'm really glad you're here. We're going to keep walking through this, one conversation at a time. I see you. If you're rebuilding, one piece at a time, follow Kallaborate wherever you listen to podcasts and be part of the conversations ahead.